Good afternoon. Welcome to Gainesville Rotary. We're so glad that you're here. We're going to move right on in to get started because it takes us a little while longer when we have a buffet. So if you would stand and we'll start with a pledge of allegiance, please. To my right, top of the banner. Salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Does anybody have any prayer concerns I'd like to bring to us before we go? Yes, sir. Grandson with him on? There was 11 obituaries on the radio this morning, which is kind of a high number for us. So a lot of people with all of her going on right now.
My sister, she's going to the hospital right now for about to be in labor.
Oh, yeah. I'm not sure where it was yesterday in the news, but there's some small town that's like our town, but not our town, that had 11 overdose deaths in 24 hours. They've got a batch in that looked like sweet tarts. They've got 11 overdose deaths and 15 overdose deaths, and 11 of them under the age of 15. What's going on? Anybody else?
I'm working with an elderly veteran. He was homeless last week, but we've been able to get him into a facility. He has very limited family, so just pray for him.
Good work. And let us know if we can help you with that. Okay. Gene, would you ask our blessing today? Remember these?
Dear Lord, we thank thee for the many blessings you've given us. We thank thee for the opportunity to live in a free country and now such abundance. Please be with those that are just mentioned that gives them strength and courage and help them to get well. Dear Lord, be with our leaders, particularly in the federal government. Be with Ukraine and pray that we can have a resolution to that problem. Give us strength as we go through this day and bless us food and nourishment of our body. In Jesus' precious name I pray.
Amen. I will tell you, I failed to mention this, I'm sorry. J.T. Holmes, young man, his cancer is back. And if I understood it right, it's in the opposite hip. So that complicates things a good bit. So I think they were going to UK again today to the plan on what it's going to be. We'll ask Mr. Jeffrey to go ahead and lead the line so you can go in first, so you have plenty of time to speak. And I'll take the ride with you and just right around there to the website, we'll far behind. Does that work? Thank you very much. Okay, we're going to move on along to a bit of Rotary business and then allow our speaker plenty of time to speak. We will wish happy birthday to Kim today. It's her birthday. So happy birthday, Kim. Let's see, Maddie had a birthday last week, and Alex and Kim are also in this month. So Kim's just today. Happy birthday. We had a great political forum last night here in this venue, so thank you to everyone who helped set up yesterday and those who were able to attend last night. A lot of it well received. We will have a video posted from TV4 onto the Facebook page shortly after lunch, whenever that comes up. If you wouldn't mind to share that to your Facebook page. The Facebook Live experienced a little bit of technical difficulties, and the volume wasn't great, so we're going to replace that TV4 video. So as you get an opportunity to share that to your page after lunch, that would be great. I think it was a great event, good exposure for Rotary, good for the community. The next 2 weeks, I will be out. Gina and I are going on vacation. All right. I have my daughter June with me today. And she said she would fill all tell the names, she'll repeat it back to you. So you'll remember them all. So next week, Andy is going to speak on long-term recovery and some of the things that's going on with current treatments and substance abuse. Of course, Andy worked with Isaiah House for several years, and so he's going to share some on that. And then the first Wednesday in October, Jason Ingram is going to speak as president-elect. And Dan Durham will be here October the 12th to speak on area back services. Great service to our community. If you're not familiar with it, you need to know about it. Shelby Gribbons has got a different job now, and obviously he's not here very often, but he has been taking care of the food, lining it up with the different providers, caterers, I guess would be a better word. He is asking for somebody else to take that over starting January 1st. If anybody would like to take that, let me know, because we need somebody to do that. Get an email on Mondays. If you would respond to that, it makes our life so much easier. If you're unable to, by Tuesday morning, you get a text, just for those who didn't respond to the email. If you don't respond to that, then I have to start texting you individually. So if you would respond to at least one of the first two, it makes my manager's life so much easier. So if you would either respond to the email or at least by the text on Tuesday morning, just a reminder, you cannot respond directly to the text. You have to text back to the number in the text. If you just respond to the text, it goes into Oblivion and we never see it. So that's just my case.
Respond to the text.
That is a service that Rotary provides, but it's an outgoing service only. So it does not receive back. It just does mass outbound text. Text is text.
We respond to the first one. Nobody took it. Text again. Just why?
What are you responding to? As long as Debbie does, I don't have any problem with that.
Yeah, I've got the same thing. I respond to the email, and then I get a text the next day. And I respond.
We're usually getting yours okay. I won't name the guilty parties, but you do.
Same thing, you can't respond to the first one.
Yeah, you respond to the first one. The first one is email. You can respond to it on Monday. The text, you don't respond to on Tuesday. You can't just reply. You have to type a number. It tells you. Just read it or reply. All that. All right, so I'm going to move along here. Let's see. Our speaker today is Dr. Thomas Jeffrey, a professor of business technology at Council University. Before moving into higher education, he worked for over 15 years in management and software development in the marketing and advertising sector. His research interest is focused on the potential impact of artificial intelligence on business and society. And so I'm going to bring him up. Do I have any other guests here besides June? I will let Mr. Jeffrey, Dr. Jeffrey, introduce his guests. And on that note, I want to turn the program over to Dr. Thomas Jeffrey.
I want to thank you all for inviting me to be here to talk about artificial intelligence. I do have a guest. This is Brenda Ferris. She's my fiance. So well, hopefully she'll stay that way. But I want us to talk about the idea of you and me and AI. And artificial intelligence is something that we hear about all the time. On the news, we hear about it, but social media, et cetera, et cetera. But I want to have more of a conversation. I mean, I did prepare a presentation, as you see, but I really think that we need to talk about it in terms of not being overwhelmed with what artificial intelligence is. And so that's my first question. What is AI? What is artificial intelligence? And it's okay, because if we don't have that conversation, if we don't just say what we think it is, then it's always this mystery. If it's, and it is. I mean, and I'm not an AI developer, but I have concerned myself with artificial intelligence because it's becoming such a part of our lives. And so, what is artificial intelligence? Robots. Robots.
Phones listening to you.
What's that?
Phones listening to you.
Phones listening to you. Yeah, I saw somebody hold up a smartphone. Absolutely.
In medicine, it's being used in call. There's an app to take a picture of a rash. Tell you what kind of rash that is. Mostly it's pretty accurate. And also do the same thing for radiology. For example, beginning to be used in mammography. Most pretty accurate, it has to be overread right now.
Absolutely.
Is it the same thing with machine learning?
Machine learning is a subset of artificial intelligence. So if we could go to the next slide, I've got a couple of slides that I just want to like set the stage so that we know what we're talking about. If we go to the next one, I want to say that artificial intelligence is more than a new technology. It's a paradigm shift. It's a paradigm shift because it's changing who we are and how we are, and to some degree what we are. Ask Elon Musk, and he's already doing some tests with neural networks so that we have brain implants. And so it's not just a new technology. It's not just better code or more powerful computers. Yes, it's all of that, but it's a paradigm shift, and it's a shift in humanity and how we're going to not just interact with each other, but somebody mentioned robots. We will soon have robots, not just manufacturing, doing things, mowing the lawn, washing the dishes, becoming embedded. They think about the Jetsons. Some of them I remember the Jetsons cartoons. Others, go look it up. They got YouTube. And so it's going to be embedded. It already is embedded. In this room, every one of us has a smartphone. And it's embedded in what we're doing. And many of us can't go anywhere without it. We keep it with us. And we use it to find things, to look up things, to even look up plans or even a flash and see what it is. So if we go to the next slide, the next couple of slides, I just want to set a baseline. So somebody said machine learning, and machine learning was the beginning of artificial intelligence. And it's moved into what we call machine intelligence. And machine intelligence is really the idea that we can teach these machines how to learn like humans, even though we don't really understand how humans learn, like the idea of understanding and the idea of learning. We've made a lot of gains in it, but what we're trying to do with not we, but the people that are developing AI want to do is to leverage those things like neural networks and to create and to move it into a stage of machine consciousness. And we're not there yet. That's in the future. But where we're at right now is definitely deep into machine learning and moving into what they call deep learning. So that they're creating these neural networks. And if you think about how you learn and how you understand, that's what they're trying to mimic when it comes to computers. But the big difference is with computers in particular is the network. The network's computer. And what we did there, what is leveraged from a neural network standpoint, is say if we're trying to learn from one another. We might ask questions, we might talk about experiences, show how it's done. And that's and you could even do it in a large group. When you're connected with the computers, we all know, we can leverage all of that computing power. And so that's one of that when we're thinking about the future and getting into machine consciousness or machine intelligence, that's what's going on. That's what we're trying to do is to leverage all of, if anybody knows anything about cryptocurrency, it's the same sort of thing. Where you have computers that are linked up peer to peer and are solving problems together at the same time. So imagine a machine that now, if it has a consciousness, is able to not only understand what the other machines are providing information to it, but learn from that machine and to create precision. And really, when we think about what is AI, AI is really geared towards precision. It's really geared towards trying to make whatever it is, the best and most perfect form. So if we go to the next slide, this is just a little bit of what we've been talking about and with a little bit of a timeline associated with it. So artificial intelligence has been around for a while, but really it was geared towards mastering games. When it first started, there was this idea of artificial intelligence to be part of our lives, but a lot of it was science fiction in nature. As they started developing in the 70s and 80s, it started becoming more like machines that would be put in manufacturing. But when it came to things like learning, like machine learning, that was more about how they would try to master games, be the chess masters and some of those things. And so as we've been moving into now the 2010s and the 2020s, we get more and more into the ideas of what deep learning is. And that is how it's trying to be able to connect with everything, learn from everything that is connected with. And so that's where we're at now, and that's where we're seeing some of the things that we take for granted, like the navigation systems. So anyone who tried to find the best way here, well, it might, but it might also show you that there's an accident or the road is blocked. And so that's part of where we're at now, and that's just one example of that, as well as the idea that the computer vision is what we call it, and that's the example of a rash. What is this rash? And so take a picture of it, and it searches in milliseconds, millions of documents to find the closest match. And so we're so used to a lot of this, and that's where we're at right now. We haven't quite gotten to the neural network phase of it, but that sets the stage. Go to the next slide. This just shows you some of the things that we've already talked about. Expert systems are ideas of, and we use this all the time, the best way to solve a problem. Or sometimes we go to a chat bot and say, hey, how do I fix my lawn fell? And you're talking with the robot online, essentially, that's searching the vast database of and trying to find the right solution to your problem. So these are just some of the things that, and we're already the natural language processing. How many of us do speech to text? And especially if you're driving, you're not supposed to be texting, right? So we just sort of do that. And those things are becoming really part of our lives. And that's why I say it's embedded in us. We might be carrying it around, but it's embedded in us. So that just sets the stage. Now, this presentation is way too long for the time given. So I'll just, the next few slides, I'll just make the point that the reason that it's getting so much attention and the reason that it is advancing so quickly is because there's money behind it. Businesses are leveraging artificial intelligence in many, many ways. If you'll go to the next slide, and we'll go through these pretty quickly because I really want to get to towards the end. So go to the next slide. We've talked about this, maybe 2 or more slides. So decision making, again, precision and accuracy. Why are businesses looking for this? It's helping to solve very complex problems. And so if we go to the next slide, we can see how quickly it's being adapted. So in the last 4 years, you can see the increase of how people are using, how businesses are using artificial intelligence as opposed to, and how it's replacing those human interactions. And a lot of it has to do with data processing. A lot of it has to do with those expert systems, or even trying to find ways to better do what humans already do. And so we've seen this in manufacturing. They've had robots for a long time. But as it becomes more and more, we already are talking about autonomous cars. And so businesses are leveraging this to do things quicker, more efficiently, more effectively, but also to reduce the highest cost in business, which is the labor cost. And so that brings us to, so I'm going to jump ahead quite a bit. I even had stuff from small business. We can talk all about that, but I really want to bring it to the standpoint that, number one, we can all understand artificial intelligence is a little bit better, why businesses want to use it so much. But my question is, what about the rest of society? So let's get quite a few here. This should be online, so if you want to really get into it a little bit more, two more after this one. So let me ask you this question. How does artificial intelligence impact society? And this is the question we ought to be asking. This is the question that's most imperative that we consider. How is artificial intelligence impacting society? What's that?
Jobs,
What do you mean jobs?
taking away some human jobs for the robots.
Human jobs being replaced by AI, robotics, et cetera, et cetera. Mainly in manual type labor. Actually, the biggest growing job replacement is in the white collar jobs. Because it's so good at decision making, because it takes all the things into account, the jobs that are now trending towards being replaced are white collar jobs. You don't think about that, typically you just think about job replacement. How else? Yes, sir.
Driving a car, and get in a car today, pushing where you want to go and eat dinner. Car over to the garage, pick you up, open the door, take it where you want to go, wait for you to get done, bring you.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's great.
That's just David driving.
It's unreal.
Absolutely, and that's going to become more and more of something that we're including, like, you know, again, going back to Rosie, was that her name from the Jetsons? You know, the maid, sign me up for that.
Smart home.
Especially if they do.
Smart home will be the next big thing.
Smart homes, absolutely,
My entire house is automated for the most part.
absolutely.
Every light bulb, every TV, every vacuum, my garage doors, everything. Makes me lazy in one way,
Well, yeah.
you know.
So there's something that, how does this impact society and the idea of becoming lazy or offsetting those types of things to something else? Think about that from the standpoint that we also get recommendations from it. Anybody shop Amazon and here's other things you might be interested in, or you don't even have to shop Amazon, you can just be looking at social media. And there's things that you might be interested in, those sort of recommendation engines. The danger there, although it seems like, okay, it's just business, it's just e-commerce. The idea is that it's bias. It's based on, it creates a bias. And it creates that bias based on your personal information and others' life. Now, that's not a new marketing tactic. Market segmentation and personalization has been around for a long, long time. But now they have access to so much of our data. And not only so much of our data, but your data, your data, your data.
And they get it so much quicker.
And they get it so much quicker, absolutely.
Seconds.
If you've heard the idea of big data, we're talking about like just a massive amount of data. And we create it all the time. Every time we like something on Facebook, or whatever social media you like that you use, every time that you select something, click on something, they're watching all of it. They're collecting that information, and they're using it to train us that it's smart and that it knows us and to trust it. And so what happens when we give up our own agency? Because we trust technology so much to make the decisions. If we think that bias and grouping is an issue now, just wait until you get leveraged into those things that we already, that it thinks that we want. What else? What else about society?
Interactions with each other, with others.
Our ability, or maybe losing the ability to interact.
Lack of.
Lack of interactions, absolutely.
Dependency on it. Like I think of electronic medical records. And when the hospital, something crashes or the electricity goes out, you can't find nothing because a lot of them are not using the paper forms anymore, so.
Absolutely. There is.
It's small. I mean, that's saying that for record, say that you go to any doctor, state, they pull your record, also that same thing, but you're also dependent on it now, so you just get to decide where's the small. Yeah, because there's always a small.
Well, and that swap off is true, but do we really understand the trade that we're making with technology?
Say, who is they? You don't understand who's like.
Well, just about anybody, but Google, Amazon, Microsoft, all of these companies and others. Even I just heard recently that Kachava, because I'm thinking about doing some, but I heard on the news that they are just now settling the lawsuit that they were using people's data. And so these companies, what they were doing, they weren't just using it for themselves, they were selling it. Your data is monetized. Now, you don't get, we could say that the benefit is we get things that go back to personalization, we get things that are more like what we want. But that data is being monetized. And what they take it and they clean it and they compartmentalize it and they sell it without us ever knowing. Now, if you read your user agreement, there's some stuff way down there, but most of us are just ready to go buy the thing and use it. That trade-off that we have with technology, I think is important. We need to start asking that question. Is what we're getting in return really worth what's happening? And what I say is what's happening is that we can't tell now if we're in control of technology or technology is in control of us. Let's go to this next slide. Now this doesn't look familiar because I didn't cover this slide earlier when we were talking about business. And so the reason that I titled this slide look familiar, when I do a search to find out how does artificial intelligence benefit society, I get almost the exact same things as I get as how can a small business use artificial intelligence? How is business using artificial intelligence? I think that's a little bit concerning, because it's all based on monetization of data and algorithms that really don't benefit society at all. And so that's the big question I have. And as I put this slideshow together and thinking about how I could inform about artificial intelligence, the thing that struck me as I was sitting here is that we're not giving enough consideration to how it's really impacting society. Go to the next slide. And so here's here's the thing that I thought is, what's an issue that we have in the community right now? What's an issue that is impacting our community?
Drugs, homelessness.
Drugs, homelessness. There is probably an artificial intelligence program, a software available that could also deal with those things. Unfortunately, the focus is so much on making money that we're not thinking about how we can leverage it, because that's not where the money is. There's got to be ways to leverage this paradigm shift so that we can make society evolve. Next slide. Next slide. We could talk for hours. I could talk for hours on this. Because these are just a few of the things. Number one is control and regulation of artificial intelligence. Who's making sure that what's being created isn't really going to do more harm than good? Now, there are some agencies out there, some organizations that do have that in mind. But by and large, there's not many government regulations. And in fact, if we go back 6 months or maybe not quite a year, when Facebook, or because of Instagram, y'all remember that? They brought them in front of the congressional hearings. And the gist of that was, well, it's a black box. We're not sure what was going on. And so while it's our, it's ours, it's our AI, it's all algorithms. It's really not our fault. But that's not a good way to start in terms of how we're going to really regulate and when it comes to laws, when it comes to responsibility. Smart weapons, autonomous drones. There are a lot, and I'm not here. This sounds really negative, and that's not entirely what my point. My point is we need to wake up. We need to be aware.
How do you control conspiracy theories? It's all stuff on the internet. No, it's not right. It's still out
What do you mean by conspiracy?
there. Yeah, that kind of stuff.
So you want to regulate freedom of speech? Well, here's how we're doing it now. To answer your question really quickly, things like Twitter, Facebook, they are censored. So yes, conversations I've had make sense that it's their company. We put our content on there, and they can censor. It's their right to censor because it's their company. The big difference is what has happened with social media is it's not like a publication. It's like conversation. And so because of how we use it, how we allow it to become part of our lives. And so that conversation about freedom of speech. I don't agree with what they say.
Yeah, but there are issues like, say, hurt people, like let's frying chicken at night. Can't really have freedom or put a video on the internet that can harm people. It has to be a limit somewhere.
It's sort of like schoolyard friends. Now, and the problem is, if it's 2 or 3 people, that's a whole different thing than 2 or 3 million, right? The scale of what we're dealing with should also be a concern. And so I don't want to discount these are conversations that we need to have as a society with each other and with others, with younger generations that are so embedded. They call them digital natives because they've had they've had a device from the very beginning. Let me go one back. There's a few up here we can have conversations about, but this one. Here's why I'm so concerned. How I don't want to say addicted, but I guess I'm not going to say addicted. How addicted are we to plastic? In the beginning, it was a great technology. It was a game changer. But now, can we even imagine not having plastics? We can't even imagine how to clean up plastics, much less. It doesn't keep us from using it more and more. That being the case, what's going to happen with something that is so much a part of our lives that we can't even go a minute or two without it? One of the things that I do in my class for our midterm research paper, I give them an alternative. You could, write a research paper about technology of some sort. Or you could do without technology for a day. And you can't mix and match. You either have to be totally committed to doing without it for a full day. And I give them a lot of, sort of advice, like, you better have a day plan. Like put it on a piece of paper, like what you're gonna do, and all these things. Because it's really difficult. Begin to imagine not being connected all the time. At the end of that day, when I have everybody report, they did what I call elevator speech, 2 minutes, how to go. They are always going to do that. My point here is that's supposed to be how Space Odyssey. That's all-knowing, omnipotent, omnipresent. And that's why you might have seen on that last slide that I said creating God. What happens when they start controlling our actions, our speech? I mean, China's already doing this. Social control, social credit. And I know I've taken up way too much time.
You're running next week for part 2.
Well, I mean, go to a couple of slides, because I do want to at least, there's a couple of things that I'm available to talk anytime.
I'm serious, everybody seems to be really enjoying it. If you'd like to come back and just continue.
Well, I haven't scared everybody
still
off.
feeling-
Yeah, a few got scared off, but I'm sorry. Absolutely, I'd be happy to talk to
Let's
you.
just do that. That way you'll have plenty of time and have, I can do Andy, he just do me a favor about next week. Let's just plan on picking it up.
Is there something, I mean, is there a direction that y'all would like me to go? Yes.
I'd be really interested in hearing more about the positive directions we go. I think you presented a good case for promotions. How do you steer it into, how do we have leverage to steer AI into productive?
Well, that'd be a good research.
Class project, right?
That's right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, anybody have anything else? No time for us to go down here, so let's stand and close with our quality check.
Get there in a second. I'll get there in a second.
The computer is not got very much artificial intelligence. But the things we think, say, or do, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? Thank you all. See you next week.